Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody. The podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today we have a really special guest on. This is someone who I've been wanting to chat with on this program since I started a couple of years ago, and that is Craig Hella Johnson. And he is the founder and artistic director of Conspirare, which is a wonderful musical company. And what they have done has been really inspirational music wise over the years. And we're going to get into just how wonderfully talented and accomplished this organization is. And they have a an annual fundraising event called Hidden Music, which is really it's a wonderfully creative, fantastic event full of great people, raises a lot of money and does a lot of good for the community. And Craig, welcome. I'm so thrilled to have you here today. I can't even tell you.
Thank you so much, Rob. It's a delight to be with you. This is, I love the title of what you do because there is a lot of joy in this work, which can often be seen as so challenging. But no, and I'm just delighted to be with you.
I'm thrilled to have you here. So please tell, anyone who's not familiar with Conspirare, talk about what the mission of the organization is.
Yeah, absolutely. We're about 31 years old. The focus of Conspirare is all music and connection, and what we like to say in our vision statement is really to support people, the awakening of all people, and how can we enrich people's lives, and so that what we do is certainly stimulating and entertaining and nourishing for the soul, all of that, but that also can be a reflection back to them of their own humanity, of their aliveness. With all the things that we hope art and music can do is what we want to do with our performances and our outreach. And the purpose really, is transformative, transformational music making, in performance, in workshop, in recordings. We've done a lot of recordings and touring. So that's really our main focus.
It's an incredible focus. And 31 years is a long time to have a company and to be successful all that time. But I want to understand what motivated you to create Conspirare. Like, talk a little bit about its origins and what made you say, you know what, I really want to create this great musical company.
Yeah. I had moved to Austin in 1990, and there was something just kind of burning in me, just a fire about wanting. I mean, to simply stated, it's for the love of music. I had that musical fire in me, and so that's where it starts. But then when I got to know Austin when I first moved here, and felt its kind of soul and its vibe, feeling that I wonder how that could align with the things I'm doing, things that I love to do. And then also, frankly, to meet another need, which I felt like in a cultural way was a national sort of need. And, people are singing in choirs all over. And I saw this group of singers who were who sang starting in, kindergarten, middle school, all through high school, at college. Many of them got advanced degrees, but maybe they weren't going to go into opera or to musical theater, but they had these incredible instruments vocally, and then they had all kinds of experience and talent that was developed. And there was kind of a unique niche for this group of singers, which is kind of a big group, a growing group. And they didn't have a place to go. There was sort of this cliff they fell off. They'd get all this advanced experience, and then like where could they be employed? And so there was a way about making professional choral music a thing. It was very rare kind of thing. Just in a couple of the big coastal cities, you'd find some somewhat regular work. But it was a way of saying we want to put value on this, and we want to be starting to say this is their talent and their experience, what they have to offer, what they have to say is worthy of our supporting it and raising it up. And what's been exciting, Rob, is that since we started doing this, really we've seen our model sort of be emulated around the country, which is crazy. I mean, there are probably, I mean, it's wonderful. It's what the hope was. But the crazy part is that there's so many groups. I bet there are probably 27 to maybe 30 groups around the country who do similar kinds of things where we bring in singers from all across the country. Lots of Austin singers too, but to really give people in the audience a sense of this extraordinary high level of choral music making that's possible. you know. So that's how this all got started, and really for the love of it. I also, Rob, would just say that I was I had this really beautiful training in classical music, but I come from a super small town, a mining town up in northern Minnesota. I mean, I just regular folks. That's who I grew up with, and they didn't have fancy music backgrounds. And um, I got into classical music, and I always saw how easy it was for the classical music to kind of get um, a little bit ivory tower, always a little bit, always like a whole lot of people feeling they couldn't relate, they couldn't connect, they felt like they didn't know enough. And and I really wanted to change that idea just because I was in love with this music. And so we used to kind of in the early days say that we wanted to kind of uh, de-snubbers, kind of, take the snobbishness out of classical music and really keep it on the level. I'll keep it real, right on, and just I wanted people to feel real welcome, even if they didn't have any experience in this. Just to say, come on, enjoy this. The door is wide open, and create enough opportunities for people to do that in a way where they didn't feel intimidated or like they had to know something in order to experience it and enjoy it.
That's amazing. And what I find there's several things I find really fascinating with your with that answer. One is that chorus in a lot of what choral choral groups are in a lot of ways like an event. They're a great ensemble piece, and ensembles are community. And you being from a small town, which is, small towns tend to be all about community. All that kind of makes sense. But just the fact that you had this vision for a place for it and for it to be replicated over 2 dozen times, like what did you ever think in the mid 90s when you started Conspirare that you'd be able to sit here in 2025 and say that?
No, I mean, I had a big dream, we think of those dreams and it seemed far off. But and then you hear everyone say, well, hold your dreams and, bring it, go big or go home. So the dream was there, but no, I mean, you just don't know, will these things kind of flourish and take off? So I'm deeply happy. And, we do it in a way. I mean, we don't, obviously, there are a whole lot of wonderful people who are creating things across the country in their own style and fashion, so we don't just take credit for it all, but there is a way in which we were some of the early ones to really start this and to really keep speaking about it in a way, because when we started this, I would hear from so many people, with professional choral music, what's wrong with the church choir my wife or my husband sings in, or what's wrong with the school, and it was like absolutely nothing. I mean, we completely celebrate that, but this is just another sort of piece of the pie, another way to experience this music. And it's also culturally something that feels important for these artists. And then people would come in here and they go, "Oh, I see, I get it. It's this is different, and I want to experience this also." But this was over and over again. We had to kind of break that idea that this was anything that was even needed or would be, a place for it in the community. I'll say often too, since we're here also talking about philanthropy and fundraising, and I think there was a time in America when a whole lot of people were wanting to build the identity of America and the identity of American cities. And I know that there were folks who would come and say, if you really want to build a city, in addition to some of the government institutions, you need a symphony, you need an opera, you need a ballet. They weren't saying back in 1850 or 18, whatever, um, you need a professional choir. And so there were sort of aspects of philanthropic activity that were developed around those institutions. We call them SOB, the Symphony Opera Ballet, or, lovingly. And but so this is a brand new thing just in the last 25, 30, 40 years. Not that there weren't organizations paying singers sometimes on a per service basis, but nothing that said we want to honor it in a way that elevates it differently. So we're just super excited about it, and love to see. And composers, they're writing differently. They're writing for these superb groups. There have been institutions that are starting training programs for this type of singer. The probably the most well known is the one at Yale, University School of Music. They have a vocal chamber music program, and literally, it's a beautiful. I don't like this. This word for it sounds impersonal, but it feels like a beautiful pipeline of potential singers for the work that we do. There's a beautiful program in Santa Barbara. There's a new one. I think it's starting up in Sonoma. And so this is exciting too, to see a training that's now developing as the need has been revealed.
Amazing answer. And your passion rings through. And, before we kind of dive into kind of some of your works and all that, I want to dive back to something you said, about being a kid who grew up in small town Minnesota. So talk about where your passion for music originated, because your story in many ways is the ultimate American success story, because you grew up in a small town that you said, that choirs and symphonies and ballets may not necessarily be a thing. So talk a little bit about where that passion originated from, in your younger years.
Yes, well, it's a simple kind of thing because it's just sort of something that's born in you, I guess. It felt that way for me. Yeah, I was just little, and I heard all the thing. I was probably barely conscious of any of this, but my mom used to say I was just always gravitating towards the piano, and at first I was just kind of hitting it, the side of it, and then once I could kind of do a little reaching, or they'd plop me up on the bench, I just with my fists I'd be pounding things, and this was at 3 and 4 years old, and then my mom realized, well, my little guy here is actually hearing things on the radio and going right over to try and imitate that. And so once she realized that, she kind of took my fist and pulled away all fingers but one. She said, she shows my index finger, and then all of a sudden she realized I was playing the tune that I was hearing. So that I think that playing by ear thing was a real early practice for me, and just a just one of those natural gifts. And I think I did fall in love with it. Just that gift kind of is its own uh, yearning, its own reward. When I started, I mean, and it goes in levels, I would say, too, Rob. I mean, I was just hearing things around me, like the musicians in my dad's church. He was a pastor, and I remember this organist came from the big city, came down from Minneapolis, or came up, I should say, way up north, and she was really talented, and she just blew me away, starting to play the works of Bach and other organ masters, and she was so alive with music. I remember being in the kids choir, and just there was such a passion that she carried, and so many of us have teacher stories like that. And then as I grew older, and as I sort of went south, I went to college south of Minneapolis at St. Olaf College, big music school. I'd start to hear beautiful things. Really was the first time when I started to hear great orchestral playing was when I lived close to Minneapolis as a student, and then I just fell in love with that um, medium, that music. That I went to rehearsals as a freshman, and just that's where my I really came alive with. Also, the idea of conducting is just sort of using my body to be a conduit of energy, and to watch that transference of energy and what impact it would have. Even though as a musician and conductor, one is silent, not making any sound, but there was this beautiful transfer, and then I grew up. I was a piano major, and so I loved the piano. It was always my home base, and I think eventually for me, Rod, I just stopped. When I was at Juilliard as a pianist, I started to feel the loneliness of that practice room when you kind of felt obligated just to keep up, to be in that practice room, 6, 7 hours a day, and that got to be really lonely for me, and I needed to be in a music making uh, thing that would allow me to be with people, and so that's the community piece again, coming back to what you started with there.
Wow. It was so inspiring hearing that, and that your mother at 3 or 4 years old had the foresight to unfist your hand with one finger. And that just goes to show, parents that give their children encouragement and encourage them to follow the things they love, great things like what you have created, have developed. And speaking of great things, you composed this just, I don't even know what to call it. It's just incredible. It's not even a good enough word. Work, considering Matthew Shepard. And
Thank
what
you.
is so remarkable about it is that you were able to do it with the support of Matthew's parents, Dennis and Judy. So, it's what happened to Matthew was just, beyond horrible. But the fact that you were able to create art around it so that people could really, and I will tell you, it's probably the most impactful thing I've seen in the last 15 years that I
Mm,
have watched.
mm.
You know, to get the support of the parents of something and to, of something so tragic and to turn it into art, what advice would you give to get family support when you're trying to create a work that honors somebody? Because it really was just a beautiful piece.
Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. It was probably the one of the most challenging and hardest things that I have done and attempted to do in my life, and then also probably one of the most rewarding and fulfilling. Just like part of why I'm here was to could it be to create that. It's a thank you very much. Yeah, Judy and Dennis Shepard are extraordinary human beings. I admire and love them so much. I can't speak for every situation that, might be parallel, but I know that for me, the only thing I had was just sort of honesty and authenticity. And, I didn't want to get a no when I asked permission. I met with them personally, but I was prepared that they may need to say no, and I think they say no with some frequency. That she has said that to me a number of times, and uh, but I will just share a very touching part of the interaction that kind of gets to that. Um, I think in when it gets to that level, it's sort of about like I could sense Judy really needed to know my heart and kind of looking in my eyes um, and I mean, how do you do that over a quick luncheon? And we were down at that place on near Mozart's. What was it? Sitting up with little drinks and with umbrellas. It felt very strange.
Oh,
Like, why are
Hula
we
Hut?
here? Yeah, yes, exactly. And so I like it was a little crowded, and I thought, well, this isn't what I envisioned. And so I was trying my best to just stay present to the task at hand, and because to me they were already kind of royalty. Here I was meeting them, but I'd shared a bit about the project. They were open and receptive, and but still we were, hadn't heard a yes or anything. But there's a poem in the piece that I have a tenor sing. It's a big solo piece in the last third of the piece called "In Need of Breath," and this is a Daniel Ladinsky translation of Hafiz, the 12th century Persian mystic poet that many folks have come to know. And these translations are very alive. And but I didn't know what to bring um, because I honestly, in all honesty, I had already started the piece, and so I didn't want to share. Here's the stuff I've worked on. Could I have permission? And so but I brought this little sheet of paper where I'd written out the words to this Hafiz poem, um, and I unfolded it from my pocket, super unfancy, and I just said to this dear mother of this 21-year-old man, a young son she had lost, I said, um, this is the poem that I would envision these words is what your son's soul would have sung to the stars that night when he was all alone, tied to the fence, looking up into the heavens. And I just said I wanted to share that this is a little piece of what I'm envisioning. The first words to that are, "My heart is an unset jewel," um, and it's it's just it's an extraordinary poem that really speaks of sort of the light being held in a person and carried into the world. And so this was not Matt, the victim. This was the big soul of Matt, kind of, the story we know that where Matt's story has gone on into the world and made a huge difference in our world. Anyway, she read this poem just sitting there very quietly. She probably took 3 minutes. And I just saw tears coming down her face. And yeah, and she went into her purse, got a pen, and she got her little business card with her phone number, and not her, but she wrote down her personal phone number and a personal email, and then she handed the card across to me and said, "Craig, you can call me, write to me anytime. I want you to do this. You have our blessing." And that was really how that happened. So it was kind of that, I don't know, just showing her one my heart to her heart kind of is how I did that. And yeah. And so I learned a lot from that. And I don't know, you never know what takes and what can make that happen. But I think we trusted each other. We learned a lot that day.
That was just beautiful to hear. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you can tell just by you talking about it and talking about it, many years after you had that conversation with her, that it really did speak to you. And there's a lot of things people can fake in life, but one thing you cannot fake is authenticity. And when it genuinely comes from your heart and you're just doing it in a way that you taking the piece of paper out from your, from your pocket and reading that poem, it just that's the way that you genuinely foster connection, especially if it's, a family that has gone through an incredible level of trauma and loss like the Shepherds did.
Yes,
I mean, that
yes.
really was a beautiful story and just a really good lesson about just treating people with kindness and dignity, meeting them where they are, and just seeing them. Because ultimately, people want to be seen. And that's what you were
Yes.
able to do, that you saw not just Matthew, but you saw Judy as well. And she felt that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful what you just said, all of it. And I do feel like it's in this work of, well, first, let me just say, in our lives now, I just hope it's what we can be doing with each other, all of us, on all sides of all issues and all partisan things. But could we just see each other more? I think what you said is so beautiful. Can we reveal more? Can we be willing to share from our hearts? I think if we could be in those spaces together, it's really hard because we get afraid and we our protective stuff comes up. But and then musically speaking, like Conspirare, I think it's kind of how we hope we can be making music. Is just can we be open, transparent conduits of whatever music it is that we're engaging, and keep a real connection with the audience. That's a piece that feels just like vital and vitally important. And is can we always be thinking of them in terms of sharing the music, sharing the essential nature of whatever it is we're wanting to express with each other in that space, which I think of as kind of ritual gathering space. Um, and I am so devoted to live music making and also the events. I mean, like what you're talking about a lot in these podcasts too, these fundraising events. I think they mean so much to us because they're ritual gathering events too. We come together and we know what joy there is, what healing. I feel like all of us are more ourselves when we see ourselves inside the whole, truly with each other.
Absolutely. And your organization any performance I've ever been to that your organization has done, there is nothing but joy. And a lot of that has to do with you have consistently for 3 decades now just attracted amazing talent. What is the secret to consistently getting top talent over the course of many years to where you, over the last, what, 17 years, you've gotten 9 Grammy nominations and a Grammy win? I mean, that's
11.
just 11 Grammy
I'm not
nominations and a
counting, but
Grammy win.
it's
Gosh,
just,
please correct me. That is
yeah.
one where you can correct me. I knew it was one above or one below 10, so I got that one wrong, people.
You
But
did,
that's why we're
yeah.
long form. But, talk a little bit about that top talent and how you just attract that over a sustained long period of time.
Gosh, well, oh, I just feel incredibly blessed that I get to work with the artists that I get to work with. It's so special, Rob. They are so special. So I would just say, first of all, I feel so lucky and so fortunate. I know this is a young conductor thing, and I am not that young conductor anymore. But I know when you first start out, and even when they first came for Conspirare, I thought, oh my gosh, they came. This is so big, such a big deal that they came. And then the fact that they will come a second time was like, oh, that's a big deal. I can't believe you came back. And so the fact that we've had some artists I mean, we have people who are really devote to this and they'll, move things in their schedules and their families so that they can make it work. It's just blows me away. But I will say, I think people want to, musicians want to make good music and they want to be involved in music that is fulfilling. And I think also, all the things like they want to be challenged and they want to use their gifts. Life is so short, and so, when you've got a musical gift, you want to be called on to use it. And hopefully we ask our singers to really use those gifts to the fullest. So I think they come for really meaningful music making. I think in that way, Rob, I just what you said earlier was really good, but we want to be seen, I mean, they want to be seen. They want to be held in respect and care and affection. And so I think, we have a really great team too that I get to work with, and we're very committed to really taking care of the artists. And to being honest with them, to communicating well with them. We don't get it perfectly because there's just so many details, and it's just lots of things to deal with. But we sure are committed to it, and we're committed to learning and growing. I think they see that. So I think the longevity does. I think they know around the country, folks know that they can come here and that they will be respected and cared for, and that they can speak if they have concerns. They can share them. We can have conversations. It's not just a top down all kind of thing. And then I think it just again comes back to the music, and we we the musical circle at Conspirare is really a I don't know, a deep soul connection. It's not just the music; it's kind of music plus. They really I love seeing them. They care for each other a lot, and you think of a row of say 7 or 8 top flight sopranos, and maybe one of them is stepping out for the solo kind of thing. They're all solo singers, and to see the way they support that singer who's stepping out every time, whoever it is. They're human beings. They got to go through that whole thing too of why am I not singing that solo, or and that they're just like mature. I mean, they're just generous. So I feel really, really lucky, and I think we try and do everything we can to make it a place where artists want to come. Yeah.
That's amazing. And what you defined is the very definition of a successful ensemble. Everyone realizes that they get their moment in the sun, but they're
Hmm.
not going to get every moment in the sun. And that's a really masterful skill on your part that you're able to tell the difference between those that like sharing the spotlight versus ones that want to hog the spotlight. Because that's a really thin line to do. And now that you've said that, I can think of several performances where I've seen that, and it's different folks, having their moment. And that's the brilliance of doing an ensemble piece, especially in a choral environment.
Mm. Well, and the thing that's cool, I would just say not a one of us here or anybody who's listening would not agree that we are in some tender times with each other as a culture, very difficult in many, many ways. And I think what's cool about professional choir as past all the music things too and all the things we've been, but I mean, as a metaphor, it's kind of this living metaphor of a way to live, where everybody still gets to be fully their own self, their individual, and with all their unique gifts. And yet they're also committed to the success of the whole. All of them are invested in that. And what you were just describing is I think so sometimes I want to just say to folks, just come and be around this. We don't have to talk to each other about it. We don't have to preach at each other. We can just witness this living metaphor of people coming together, really intelligent, people with big ego strength, for talent, and yet still they're interested in the success and the health of the whole. And they actually realize that some of their deepest joy comes when they're fully engaged with that sense of wholeness and unity with each other. It's pretty amazing. So I've told them last time, I think, we've shifted from being, this type of arts organization that can be edifying and soul enhancing, all lots of nice things, entertaining, but to yes, that, but also I call them frontline workers right now. They're on the front line of kind of what we're dealing with culturally. And just I say, keep living the way you live, keep engaging with each other the way you do, and you're kind of a living example of something really beautiful, and that I'm hoping we can all aspire to.
Now, that was beautifully said. And, I want to turn now kind of to, the fundraising piece and, hidden music that's coming up. And one thing to me, there are three, and we've talked about this on this program before. There's three key components to a successful event, and your organization has them in spades. There is heart, which you just feel in every one of those performances, but you also feel wow. And they're also a lot of fun. And when you have all three of those elements, what you get is a devoted following. So, what is one thing and you would recommend to an organization to create that devoted following that you all have for an annual gala or signature fundraiser?
Hmm. Yeah, mine are just real basic, I think, is sort of like share what you love and share that authentically. And be yourselves utterly, um, and be yourselves consistently, It's really interesting, Rob, because for fundraisers, we have tried, you know, I mean, with a fundraiser, of course, you're always interested in raising as much money as you can because that's the goal. But and we have tried over the years. We've been very creative. Should we bring kind of a celebrity in or somebody who's sort of a this or sort of do a golf classic with some known notor and every time there've been a little bit of conversation and then there's sort of a real quick pushback like no, be Conspirare and we're like well what is that and so but there's something in the middle of that that just like keep being ourselves, keep sharing the thing we love and it's contagious. I will say no one, I mean, lots of people listening to this might think, yeah, I can relate to that. But we have a whole lot of people that started out who are now kind of devoted listeners and fans, but who would start out saying, I'm really not into choir. Some people would say I'm not into it very much, or some people would say I'm not into it at all. We have many people sharing stories. Someone invited me. I thought, oh God, no, I'm not going to go to a choir thing or a choir gala or whatever. Um, and then they're now with us for years after years. So it was just getting them in the door. And then I think hopefully we were at that time we're doing the thing I said, which was being ourselves and sharing the thing we love. Um and all of a sudden you get to see it in a light. We didn't present it in a way of kind of academically just or sort of, bookish in a sense, but just like as a real living thing. And then connecting it up with the fact that we're all I'll say often we sing on a canvas of breath. And, and then I'll say too, this is my little kind of, it's probably trite for most people to me now, but I'll say, what is one thing that is absolutely undeniably something that we have in common, all of us? And that is we all have breath. We all exist because of breath. And our name is all about breathing, to breathe with, to breathe together. And so, I think the fact that we share this thing we love, this is an art form that will say, you have the instrument inside you too. And so anyway, that's one thing that comes to mind is like sharing the joy of what we love.
Not only do you all share the joy with what you love, I'm glad that you have realized your own, I don't want to say your own notoriety, because the thing is that you all as an organization are, not many organizations can walk around saying that they've got 11 Grammy nominations, a Grammy win, and are a Texas Medal of Arts recipient. I mean, that's a lot of accomplishment that you all in and of yourself with what you do, that is more than draw enough. And I love that when you said, be us, be Conspirare, people see that and notice that. And that's one of the reasons why I think it has been, that you are, it's very rare that you get to be an organization that's already legendary and you're still in your prime. That's not something that usually happens. So I'm glad that you realize both, the humbleness that we're good but you don't get absorbed into all the accolades, and that you can be authentically I just think that's beyond amazing, and why you all are so successful.
Mm, thank you. That's lovely. Um, it's been quite a journey, and I think I love this idea of always trying to sort of sharpen the knife, keep the knives sort of in the kitchen, good and sharp, so you can, but always asking that question, like, um, I think it's about presence. I guess I would say that. There's sometimes where people will say, "Oh, at Christmas, oh, I feel like this was the best Christmas ever," and but you'll hear those same people maybe saying it many Christmases, and if as an artist, like I tried to chase that down, like, oh, what am I gonna do to top it next year? It's like that's an unrealizable sort of stress to carry, and um, and it would make it dead too. But when we stay um, I want to say present with presence. Sort of the moment that's alive is this moment. And this all sounds kind of like woo-woo talk maybe, but it isn't. I mean, I live it because the musical moment that's alive that people want to gather around is the right now. And so, yeah, we can't stand. It's fun to say 11 Grammy nominations, but in a way, they're floated down the river, and the music we're making is today, and we're proud of that and so grateful for it. But really, we need to make music in this moment and be asking questions. Like programming is one of the funnest things, but really one of the hardest things I do is just like, how can we meet people in this moment? Like really thinking of the audience and thinking of who are we and what do we want to express as musicians too, and how do those two things meet? But by keeping those questions really current and alive, and not sort of resting on our laurels or kind of, that's the only way I know that we can stay alive is to stay in that act of co-creation always. Um, and yeah, and that's what people want too. I mean, we as long as we're here on this earth, we want to be alive. We want to be in the act of creation and joining with one another in that. And so but boy, it's a fascinating journey, and the time goes so fast.
It does go fast. And you had
Yeah.
talked about programs in that response there. And, one of the things, obviously, it's one of the reasons why you do Hidden Music as an event is to raise funds for these programs so that you can put out these incredible works. So I'd love for you to talk about, as the founder of the organization, and I must say, I've seen you, you greet everyone that comes, I mean, and you pose for more photos than just about any other event host that I have ever seen. And you are so kind and you are so gracious and you know something about every single guest that walks in.
Mhm.
It's just you are an excellent host in that regard. And
Thanks.
I want to hear, as the founder of the organization, what do you enjoy most about attending Hidden Music and engaging with donors so that you can share your vision with them?
Well, um, I'll tell you, it's called Hidden Music because of a poem by Rumi, the 13th century Persian mystic. So we're all about the Persian mystics. He's the most read poet in the world, though, so it's pretty cool. But he had I don't have to share the poem now, but so this goes a long way back. I don't know how many years now, probably maybe 20, I don't know, 15, 18. We had a wonderful colleague, Brett Barnes. Many folks know Brett. He was the development director. He's a beautiful human and singer. And so, but Brett I took Brett because he's strong and he's convincing and, he was really pushing me like, Craig, we're going to turn you around. Will you do this? Would you be willing to sort of, sing and play? I think he knew privately, I love to do that, but I'm an introvert. I'm pretty bashful, kind of in those ways, and I'm always deferential to the singers of Conspirare because they're so awesome. And so I'm like, no, 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 they're singing, no, 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 no. So he was the guy who really, I won't say forced me around, but had the great spark to talk with me through that. And so we started that. So I said, I'll only do it if maybe we can use it as a flip it around on the audience member. So the hidden music, might be in the literal sense at that moment, the music hiding in me. I mean, it's taken a lot of people to encourage me to sing a bit more. I love to do it, but as I say, I'm pretty bashful too. So it's always a matter to kind of coax me out. But when I do it, it's really my heart singing. I mean, it's really just, and so I love it. It's the sitting at night at home, sitting, playing the piano, singing songs at night. That's me. And so then to share that, that's kind of the hidden music, the literal version at that point. And then when I think of that Rumi poem, which talks about the reflection of that hidden music in every single person, and maybe it's not a literal music, but I really wanted the event. Again, yes, we're trying to raise money, but let's make it an event where people actually go away feeling like they've received, not just that they've been asked to give. But I want to, and it'd be my heart's joy anytime if someone got that sense. But I said, I'm singing so that we can reflect back to every person there that each of you has a light that's shining. Each of you is divinely uh, conceived and created, and you have major gifts inside of you that maybe are hidden. And tonight we celebrate those hidden gifts in each of you. And so that's where that all came from. So I guess in a way, I'm still kind of in love with that concept. And so I sing sometimes more some years than others, but I always sing some. And that's kind of at the center of it. And so I think that's something I really do love. I still get nervous about it all and all that, but I love doing that. And I love the older I get too, the more and more I just realize what a precious gift it is when someone says at any giving level, I'm willing to part with some dollars or some time with a in-kind gifts. I'm willing to give something in a response to something you're doing or expressing or creating. Just blows me away. I mean, that we completely survive because people surround us and want to hold it up. So to me, the idea that we could say thank you to these people and really feel them flesh to flesh, and it's really important to me. Yeah. So I love that. Just being together is really fun.
Well, and the togetherness that you feel at Hidden Music really is amazing. And one of the things that's so wonderful is that you get to hear the Conspirare ensemble perform. So talk a little bit about what some of the benefits and challenges are of having a large ensemble perform at an event, because a lot of times it may not be on a world-class stage with perfect acoustics. So I kind of want to hear your take on, what advice you would give to someone looking to, do that large ensemble performance at an event.
Yeah, that's right. Well, first you laugh like that, and then I guess the first thing is the fire code, Yeah, because we are not in huge, super huge venues. So, it's always an issue, like how many people can we actually handle? Because we've had symphonic choir. I think you were there last year, and so I don't know if we even had everybody. It was a portion of symphonic choir. No, we didn't. So we couldn't all fit. And we don't like that when all of our members can't come, but we knew we would not be in adherence to the fire code. So that's one thing. And what it brings is, of course, a really wonderful sense of joy. I think people love being surrounded with sound. Sound in itself, just as a vibratory healing, you know, um, just just the fact of the sound itself doesn't matter what it is we're singing, but singing with breath and vibration into bodies, that's a healing thing. And so that in of itself, people receive it. But I mean, I think the considerations are everything one would imagine. They're completely practical. We sit and kind of ponder back and forth. We have a very good, trusted team. We can kind of banter back with each other, back and forth. And, can we do this? Can we accommodate this? And somebody at the table will hold up a voice that says, "Oh, I don't really think we can." And then somebody else is, "But I think for this we must because this is the important part of the theme," or, all the back and forth. But it is so often also a practical thing because maybe I mean, if you're renting a venue, you only have that day and would be more like a short part of an afternoon to make it work. It's not like you can be in there 2 days in beforehand and figure it all. So and then I know last year was a perfect example. We're trying to rehearse walking on and walking off. How do you make this big moment happen when, these wonderful people are setting up tables and place settings at the same time? They're hanging lights. I mean, everybody's screaming over it. So it just takes a lot of willingness to be patient, be kind with one another, knowing that it's going to be one of those very intense days that feels like, no matter, I mean, with great production people, great organization, it can still feel like a very zooey kind of afternoon. So yeah, and we just have to remember, all will be forgiven tomorrow. However we get to our goal.
Absolutely. Get to your goal. And, the music allows you to do that just because
Right.
even if it's the entire company or a piece of the company, you know, you can feel that in the room. And that's one of the things I love most about arts organizations is you can, it's real easy to directly see where your money's going because you get to kind of see it live in front of you. And and if you're moved by it, that's one of the reasons why the arts are so powerful and they're
Mhm.
so impactful. And I know that we're coming up on time here, but I wanted to end with this one question. Haven't I haven't had the opportunity to ask this to any guests. I always end with kind of a question like this, but not this exact one.
All right.
And that is, what is a piece of advice you would give to someone who is looking to start a performing arts organization or a company of performers?
Hmm. uh, well, I mean, before the advice, I'd probably say that's exciting. I'm, happy to hear about the spark and the vision because this world always needs and welcomes more art, more expression. So that's beautiful. So that's the first thing. And I don't know, that advice, I'd have to really think about that. But just off the cuff here, it would have something to do with um, knowing, just kind of checking in with yourself to say, how deeply do you care about this idea? How deeply is it? I mean, does it feel related to your purpose? I mean, if you feel like whatever it is you want to create feels somehow related to the purpose of why you're here on this planet, then go for it. But just know that it's more hard work than you would ever imagine. And there's more no coming at you than you'd ever imagine. This is not nationally or in a state way really a, a culture that supports the arts. There's mild support. We're so grateful for the NEA of that support. We're just so blessed by that. And the Texas and the city grants, all those are great, but they're never enough to make an organization fly. So they're just majorly beautiful gifts. But it's just so much work. And so you really, really, really have to love this. And maybe it sounds so trite, but just to know that going in. And then if you feel that deep yes, if it's still knocking at your door, then just bring all the love you can to it and try and always keep the art at the center. That's a real fight because these shouldn't be opposite each other, but very often they're on one side there's art, and then the other side is this sort of worshiping at the altar of staying in the black. And I don't mean that we shouldn't stay in the black. So my board members or my colleagues are smiling. But it's a dynamic that's different if we worship at that altar of it's all just about keeping the columns in the black that they need to be, and it'll be a different focus. You keep your columns in the black as best you possibly can, but the focus needs to be on this side of the art, on the expression, on the service. These are service organizations, art organizations, and it needs to be on the service that you're fulfilling. Otherwise, the priorities will always be off, and you'll find yourself with dilemmas that uh, aren't the right dilemmas, I would say. So, but just keep the art at the center, and then all blessing and love and strength for the journey.
That was a beautiful answer. And, love what you do. And you can tell, just in our chat today, you can just feel the love of music that you have, the love for this organization that you have, the love for creativity that you have. And I can't thank you enough for this time today, Craig. This was just a fantastic conversation. I'm just so grateful you were able to join us.
Thank you so much. I have enjoyed it so thoroughly too, Rob. Thanks. I feel honored to be a part of this with you.
Absolutely. And Hidden Music 2025 benefiting Conspirare will be held on April 26, 2025 at Assembly Hall in Austin, Texas. For more information, please visit conspirare.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.